Selamat malam, good evening everyone. I can see all the happy face because today is a Friday night. Okay, so once again, welcome to AtAmerica. Thank you for being here and thank you for the effort to conquer all of the traffic today. My name is Edo and I would like to give you a glimpse information about what is this place. AtAmerica is an American center from the US Embassy where we have so many events and we try to explore and experience about the United States and you can share your ideas about America through our event and facilities in the exhibition area. Before we start the event, here are the upcoming events in AtAmerica. So we're going to have about education USA Law School Fair. There will be five law school. It's gonna be tomorrow, Saturday, April 21st from 1 to 5 p.m. If there's anyone who want to ask more, especially about the law school, you can come here into AtAmerica. And also we have information, all of information about the UNESCO scholarship for those of you who wants to know or maybe doubt about UNESCO scholarship, you can come on Thursday, May 3, 2018 from 7 until at 30 p.m. And AtAmerica has been here since December 2010. We have held over than 3,600 events and 1.5 million visitors who are being here. But the question is how to get an update schedule events into AtAmerica. It's pretty easy. You just go to www.atamerica.or.id, put your name and email address, and we will give you our update schedule events once a week through your email. And speaking about social media, of course, we do have all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, especially for the Facebook. For the Twitter, if you love for today's event, don't forget for today's hashtag @America, and your tweet will appear onto our tweet wall on the right side. Okay, let's begin the event. I would like to introduce you. Please welcome for today's moderator, Josephine Citra, Presiden Indonesia Mengglobal.
So guys, hi everyone. Good evening. Thanks so much for coming, and also thank you so much for AtAmerica for hosting us here for several years, so many times. And thanks to each one of you for willing to spend your TGIF moments with us. And despite all the traffic and despite all the raining, thanks so much. I'm very glad to see every one of you here. So before we go further, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Josephine Citra, and this year I have an honor to serve as the president of Indonesia Mengglobal. And for those of you who just knew about Indonesia Mengglobal from this event, so we are a non-profit organization where we have a mission to provide the information about overseas higher education, scholarship, and also working experience. So last year we were officially established as Yayasan, but actually we've been around for some time since 2012, and we started off as actually a small community who at the time were quite the lucky few who got to study abroad. But at the time, our co-founders, Martin and Fanny, were concerned due to the scarce information available for other Indonesians to also study abroad and also to access information. So bound with the spirit of democratizing the access to information, and where they believe that everyone and each one of Indonesians should have the same access to information of studying and pursuing better opportunities abroad, we established Indonesia Mengglobal up until this point. So we are very proud that we have published more than 1,000 articles on our website from more than 500 contributors across the globe. And not only actually publishing high quality writings, but we also do regular events like this, like seminar where we give more sharing session, where our audience can also have direct conversation with the speakers. And more importantly, we also give free mentorship for those who want to study abroad and for accessing this scholarship, which will be later explained by one of the speakers. So that was the brief introduction about Indonesia Mengglobal. Today, our first event of the year in 2018, I have also mandated to facilitate the discussion as a moderator. And I'm very glad that we picked this topic because for me, the topic today was and is a $1,000,000 question. Why so? Because as someone who also lucky to be able to study abroad before, I often got a lot of question about, Josephine, why do you think you were accepted at the school? Actually, for me, it was quite a difficult question because for me to be able to answer that question, I have to be able to read the mind of the admission committee, which clearly I cannot, okay? So today is very fortunate that we have various speakers from different backgrounds, and one of them is from the admission committee and also from the education consultant. So they are very generous to allow us to read their mind, to look over their shoulder, and to understand the rationale why they pick certain candidate to be accepted at the school. Okay? And so, without further ado, I would like to welcome the first speaker of today, who is willing to share his thought as a seasoned admission officer at Duke University Business School before, and at his current position at Duke Kunsan University, about what actually he looks from candidates. Our speaker has also read more than 1,000 applications and interviewed more than 100 applicants, both for master's degree and undergraduate program. So his insight is beyond doubt. Ladies and gents, please welcome Russell Davis, Director of Global Student Recruitment at Duke Kunsan University. Russell, floor is yours.
All right, so what am I pointing at here? All right, I might need a little assistance here. It's great to be here, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your Friday night with us and this very illustrious group of people here who are going to be sharing lots of different insights. Oh, there we go. And all right. So as Josephine mentioned, my name is Russell Davis, and I've been in education for about 20 years. I started my career out at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, so in North Carolina. And then I moved to Duke University in 2005, where I spent about 11 years as Associate Director of Admissions. And as you heard, I read a lot of applications for the business school. More recently, I am now the Director of Global Student Recruitment at Duke University's presence in China. And it's called Duke Kunshan University. This is a university that students study both in China and the US. They earn dual degrees from Duke University, Duke Kunshan University, and we attract students from all over the world. So I've read applications from all over the world, but I've spent a lot of time focused on Asia. So tonight, I'm going to share with you some of the tips that I like to share to help young people put together the most compelling applications possible. Now, Josephine mentioned something very interesting. She said people ask her, why did she get into school? And I will tell you, that's a really hard question to answer because there's really no one thing that gets you into school. Okay? So I'm going to talk about all the different elements of the application, so you're going to get an understanding how your profile, how you are viewed as an applicant, and how each of these elements of the application plays a role in that ultimate decision. So they're really, and the reason I know there's no, it's funny. I have a lot of friends who have come through different programs, and they'll tell me, oh, I got in because of this one thing, or oh, I got in because of this one thing. And I can tell, I read their file. I sat in admissions committee and discussed their application. And it's never just that one thing that they think. So let's talk about tonight the application process, how to put together a compelling application. I'm going to talk about the ideal qualities of those great applicants, and then talk just briefly about making the most of your 4-year experience. So admissions committees typically take what they call a holistic approach to your application review. This means they're looking at all of the elements of the application. Now what this means is, this is a good thing, because what it means is there's not a lot of people out there that are perfect. So it's okay maybe to have one element of your application that's not the strongest, but you're able to make up maybe with one of those other elements of the application. These are the typical elements: academics, essays, recommendations, extracurricular activities, and interviews. So I'm going to go over each one of these components so you can kind of get a sense of what they're looking at when they're looking at those different elements. Now, academics is essentially your GPA, so they're going to look at your transcripts. They're going to look at test scores. As an international student, many schools will require that you take a TOEFL or an IELTS. But essentially what they're evaluating here is, are you academically qualified or are you going to be successful? Schools don't want to admit people that they don't think are going to be academically successful. You know, the more elite the university is, you know, it's going to be very challenging. And so they just want to make sure that you are going to be successful, because in order to take full advantage of the experience, you don't want to be struggling so hard that you can't immerse yourself in the entire experience. Because you'll actually notice that I very rarely use the word education. I use the word experience a lot, because it's truly an entire experience. And if you're really going to make the most of your 4 years, you want to be fully immersed, fully engaged in the entire experience. Essays. Now, this is an amazing opportunity to share your story, to share those things about you that demonstrate your unique perspective. And I will tell every single one of you, you are unique. You know, I would oftentimes get someone coming up and say, oh, I know there's 3 other students from my high school that are applying. I know that you've already admitted this number of people from Indonesia, so I don't think I have a really good chance. I'm not that different from everybody else. I can promise you, every one of you is unique. And you're unique because those experiences that you had, those passions you have, the inspirations for your passions, for the values that you have, are only unique to you. So your job is to figure out how to share and demonstrate that unique perspective. And essays are a great chance to do that. So it's your voice, it's an opportunity to share that unique perspective. Now, bonus for reflecting some knowledge of the university. Why is that university the right university for you? You know, we call this connecting your story to the school's story. So instead of saying, I just want to go to this university because of its location, try to highlight something specific about the university that makes it extra special to you. Okay, that's connecting your story to the university story. Now, one of the most common mistakes is people don't always answer the question. So make sure you really understand the question, you understand what they are asking. You know, the most common mistake I'll see as it relates to that is someone will tell a story that, you know, clearly they've really wanted to share, they've really wanted to tell you about something, but it doesn't really address the question, okay? So even though it might be a great story, it actually gets a bit of a ding if you don't answer the question. Now, applying to college is what I call a process in self-discovery. You know, it's going to require that you do something we call self-reflect. It allows you to demonstrate that you have some self-awareness. Now, many universities in the U.S. use something called the Common Application. And there's a number of essays that you will choose from. I have just one sample up here within the Common Application. So you'll have an essay that might be in the Common Application that you'll choose. If you're using the Common Application, oftentimes the university will then have a more specific university-related question. But the reason I'm bringing this question forward is because I want you to see how you need to go through that process of self-reflection to answer the question. Discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself and others. So this forces you to reflect and think about, is there something that happened in your life that kind of changed the way you look at the world? So typically essay questions for college applications, you can't just pull it up, write it down, and be done with it. You know, this is something you're going to reflect on. You might talk to your friends. You might talk to your parents. Schools, admissions committees, they want to see that you've done this process of reflection. You've thought about what were the inspiration for those values and passions that you have? Sometimes these are painful experiences. Sometimes they were great successes you celebrated. But the point is, you need to think back, think about how you've grown as an individual. Many of the common application questions are similar to this. Now, after leaving Duke in 2016 and before joining Duke Kunshan University, I was an admissions consultant. And I enjoyed working with students to help them figure out how to tell their stories. These are 2 exercises that I used to give my students to help them kind of get the process going. First was write down 4 to 5 stories that reflect who you are. These are 4 to 5 stories that if I needed to know who you were, these are stories I would have to know about you. And then think about, how did they shape your values? How did they change your view? Maybe you discovered some strengths that you had. Maybe you discovered some weaknesses that you had. But write down these 4 to 5 stories and then continue to write about, how did you grow? How did you get inspired? How did it change your view? Okay, how did it change, your perspective? The second one is list all of those activities, clubs, hobbies, everything that you love doing, and think about why. Think about what gratification you get out of it, what inspired the interest. And after doing this, it starts to get the old brain working, and you really start to think about all those things that are important to you, maybe how you've grown. You start to reflect on the strengths that you have, what you're good at, and maybe even start to think about what you might want to do. Now, recommendations are, you don't have to tell your story by yourself. Your recommendations, typically, you might get a couple teacher evaluations. You can get a counselor recommendation. I always say, let your recommenders help you. Help them help you. So make sure that they understand that, these schools are looking for them to talk about the impact, your impact you had on the classroom. Did you ask good questions? Were you a good student? Were you involved in the discussion? And then these teachers should know you so well, be careful who you select, that they can actually talk about how you've had an impact on your student community. Okay? And so they can help you tell your story. Let them know what are those key themes that you want to bring out in your application. Your counselor can do the same thing. In fact, they may know you so well, they know what those things are that are important to you, those involvements that you're in, that are outside of the student community. So let them be a voice. Let them share those things that make you so unique and special. Now, just a quick note on extracurricular activities. I know I've seen all the long lists. I did this, and this, okay? I will promise you, quantity, it's quality. Quality over quantity, okay? We'd much rather see 3 or 4 activities that you were involved in that clearly mean something to you. We understand the inspiration for them. We understand why they're important to you. You've shared with us, how you grew as a result of it. You've even let us know that going back to connecting to the university, you hope to continue this at the university through their activities that they're going to allow you. You've done your research on the university. So the 1 point, quality over quantity. So the interview is that opportunity to now get to know you as a person. They've read your application. They're like, wow, I kind of like this person. I want to get to know them a little bit better. Now they're just measuring you as a person. They just want to talk to you, get to know you better. Likability factor is important, right? Language skills as a non-native English, that's a tongue twister, non-native English speaker. I'll slow down on that one. And they just want to get to know you and have a nice conversation. If they have a nice conversation with you, that's usually a pretty good sign that the interview went pretty well. Certainly they want to see if you're somebody they want in their community, okay? All right. So your passions, your themes, those things that are important to you, those things that really reflect your unique perspective, they should be threaded throughout your application. Certainly you're going to touch on them in your essays. You're going to list those extracurricular activities. Your recommenders, your evaluators are going to highlight those things that are most important to you. It's going to come out in your interview, okay? And so this is how we start to feel like, oh, this is not just an applicant I'm getting to know. I feel like I'm really getting to know this applicant as a person. Remember, admissions committee members are people, okay? And if they feel like they can connect with you and get to know you as a person, this is when they're going to get really excited about you. And when you're in admissions committee, and I've sat in a lot of admissions committees, you know, when somebody brings forward a file that they've read and they are inspired by this person, they've really fallen in love with this person because they got to know him, they're going to utter these two words that, boy, when they say them, everybody in the admissions committee listens, and that is, this is a must-have for our community. Okay? So if they get to know you as a person and they like you, you're going to get an advocate, and if you really reveal yourself and let them understand who you are, what motivates you, what's inspired you, they're going to get super excited. Those are also the folks who are probably going to get the most scholarship reconsideration. So ultimately in your application, your job is to demonstrate that you're curious, that you ask a lot of questions, that you want to be engaged, you want to be fully engaged in the experience. You're going to share your perspective. I will tell you right now, you know, students from Asia have a bit of a reputation for not always being confident to speak up in class, to raise their hand, to share their perspective. Let them know. Your teachers can help with that too, by the way. Let them know that you are eager to share your perspective. They've admitted you because you've got a unique perspective. You embrace learning from other people. That you recognize that if you're surrounded by people who have different knowledge and experiences, that, hey, you know, you can learn from them. This is a great thing. Team skills, being willing and excited to work with other people who are different from you is very appealing. We talked about getting involved. Certainly, desire to have an impact, get engaged in the broader community, well-rounded, and has leadership potential. All right. Ultimately, you will make the most of your 4 years. If you do all these things, you'll contribute to the student experience and community, be fully engaged, and as a result of doing all of these things, this is how you increase the chances of reaching your full potential. So we talked about getting to know you as a person. Finally, because I got 25 seconds left here, my biggest advice for all my international students that I've worked with for years and years and years, be fearless. What do I mean by that? Don't be afraid to raise your hand in class. Don't be afraid to try things that are new to you. Don't be afraid to say the wrong thing, okay? Nobody expects your English to be perfect. Be fearless, seize the opportunity, make the most of your adventure. If you do these things, these are the predictors of success in my years of education. All right, so look at that, perfect. So, never had a clock right in front of me. So thank you very much, and I look forward to answering any questions we have at the panel, and then, of course, I'll stick around afterwards.
Thanks so much, Russell. Very interesting one, and I guess it's for me it's quite unique because it's not only getting making the right application, but it's also how first of all we should know ourselves first, what our strength, what our weakness, what is our story. Okay, so first speaker has already told you about the perspective from the admission committee. Our second speaker is our host. She is an advisor, education advisor for Education USA, and she has helped many students, Indonesian students, and also she has a lot of insight about what common mistakes people do during the preparation. So hopefully by presenting this, all of you will be more aware of common pitfalls that you can avoid these common pitfalls. Okay, so without further ado, I'd like to welcome Fina Alatas.
Thank you so much, Josephine. It's really funny because usually I'm on the stage and introducing people, but tonight I can actually get introduced. So it's really interesting. But right, like Russell shared with us basically what is it, the tips for you to get in, basically, right? What is it that the university in the US is really looking for? And my most favorite thing is the holistic approach. I think that is one of, if not the most interesting thing when you want to apply to the US. I don't really see that in other country, but the US, right? So my name is Fina. I am the advisor for Education USA here at AtAmerica. Maybe for those of you who have been here before, you're already familiar with it, but if this is your first time, welcome. And I would like to tell you a little bit about what Education USA is before we move on and learn about the common mistakes that prospective grad students usually make, right? So Education USA, we are part of the US State Department. We have over 400 international students advising centers in more than 170 countries. So basically what we do is we provide information and we assist international students, anyone who wants to study in the US. In Indonesia, we have 8 centers with 10 advisors. So 2 in Jakarta, 2 in Surabaya, we have in Medan, Malang, Makassar, and Aceh. So if you have any family members or friends who live in the cities, you can basically tell them that it's not only in Jakarta, right? What's unique about AtAmerica is that we open every day, so you don't have to, worry about we're not being here on Saturday or Sunday. But you can definitely just come in. You don't have to make any appointment. And then our office hour is also a bit interesting because we don't usually do the normal office hour 8 to 5, but we do from 1 until 9. So for those of you especially who wants to continue to grad study and then you're currently working, you can definitely stop by after your after working hours, right? Also, we also have one at the U.S. Embassy Jakarta. There will be 2 advisors there as well. You can definitely get any advice from one of them. It's just that you have to make an appointment to get into the U.S. Embassy. So if you want to have an easy access, you can definitely just come into AtAmerica. Our services, we provide 5 steps, but I like to actually go beyond this 5 steps. We start with research your options. So you want to study in the US, but you don't know where to start. Let's sit down together and let's take a look at the option, right? And then, of course, finance your studies because it's equally important. How are you going to fund your study? Is it going to be full scholarship, full ride scholarship? Is it going to be partial scholarship? And what have you? We're going to talk about that as well. And then completing your application, it might be the one that takes a lot of your time, but please, we want to let you know that Education USA is here, so we are always on your back. So basically, we help you any kind of help that you need when you are completing your application, right? Reading your essay, we can give you a review on that, or resume and something like that. And then, of course, we are always eager to wait for good news from you guys, and you email me and you say, hey, I got accepted. And then, of course, we're moving on to step 4, which is applying the student visa. And step 5 is actually my favorite event of the year because we always have it every year. This year, we're going to have it in June 2nd. You guys are more than welcome to attend. So it's the pre-departure orientation. Basically, it's an event for anyone who is going to depart for the next term. So we're going to basically cover about what is it that you need to prepare before you leave, what is it the first few things that you need to do when you get there, and something like that, right? But then, of course, after step 5, I always like to get in touch with you guys yang kalau misalnya nanti sudah ada di Amerika, because here at America we always have events, and our events are mostly interactive. We like to invite current students who are actually studying there. We like to, when you're done with your study, we'd like to invite you here to basically share with all of us yang baru akan mau berangkat, to basically share your stories, right? And so, again, at America, there are 2 advisors, Fina, myself, and my friend Caroline. And then again, this is our hours. Every day we open, including public holiday, right? We never close. Okay, so let's take a look at I make 5 common mistakes, but let's take a look for the first one. So this is my 3rd year as an advisor here at Education USA. So I, really directly working with prospective students, people like you. And going my 3rd year, I saw some similarities in the common mistakes that most Indonesians are making. So I hear this a lot. You need to have a good GPA, otherwise the university won't accept you, right? Is that true? Basically what Russell has covered. The admission committees, they don't just look great. They don't just look at grades and don't let your GPA represent you as a candidate, because obviously you are actually more than that. It's not always about grade when applying to the US. This is also interesting if you really think about it, because most students think that, oh, I need to have a good GPA to get in. It's always not the case for the US. They look at everything in your application. Like Russell mentions, it's the holistic approach, right? They look at your essay. They look at your letter of recommendation, right? Common mistake number 2, writing your statement of purpose close to the deadline. I got this many, many times. They come in here and they said, hey, Fina, can you help me basically give me some feedback on my essay? And then the first question that I always ask is, when is the deadline? And some of them come and say, 2 days from now, or, oh, it's actually tonight. You do not want to do that. Like, really, you do not want to do that, unless you're a writer, right? But you definitely want to prepare as early as possible. Be it you don't apply until next year, but writing statement of purpose is one of the most important aspects of your application. It's an integral part of the application. The admission committee actually put a hefty weight on statement of purpose because they really, really want to know you and basically how you can prove to them that you know about the university. So you don't just apply to the university just because, right? But you definitely need to have a good reason on why this university is good, right? And how this university will help you get what you want, right? Resume is not statement of purpose. Maybe now you start thinking, oh, that's gonna be easy. I have my resume, I'm just gonna make a story out of it. You don't want to do it because I'm gonna tell you why on my next slide. And then you need to have proofread, avoid poor grammar and misspelling words. Have someone else, your close friends, to read your essay and have their honesty to basically tell you if it's really true about yourself, right? Or you can definitely come to Education USA advisors like me. I mean, I've never met you before. Like, I'm a stranger, right? I can basically tell you if the flow is already good or not, okay? And basically, the more revisions, the better. Sometimes, this is also why you don't want to do the essay very last minute, because sometimes when you come in and then I would say that I don't really understand what you're saying here, or sometimes I also ask, what is it that the university is actually asking? And then I get the question and I read your essay and then it doesn't really answer. This is also what Russell has mentioned earlier, that sometimes you don't really address the questions that the university asking for. So I like to tell you that you have to basically revise this essay. So I worked with so many students who basically stop by AtAmerica like twice or 3 times a week to basically, you know, keep revising their essay until at the end, I would say this is really, really good essay, right? Common mistake number 3, you do not address what the admission committees are asking or looking for on the statement of purpose. This is very important, and I really, really see this pretty common here. That you just keep going on and on and on, basically telling about yourself, but it didn't really answer the question. So you really need to read the question. Do not write the obvious. Something like, the reason I chose this university because you are ranked in the top 5. The admission committee, if this is true, the admission committee will be saying something like, well, yeah, duh, we know. You don't have to say it anymore. Do not say the obvious. They just want to know, just to the point, just tell about yourself, right? If you want to tell the good thing about the university, you can go deeper than that by just saying you are ranked in the top 5, but you can say something like, oh, because you have this program that no other universities in the US have, something like that, right? Do not recite from your resume, because I see this a lot. So I like to, sometimes even without me reading your resume, and then I read the essay, and then I'll be like, I can guarantee you that this essay is actually part of your resume. You just make a story out of your resume. And then the students sometimes, oh, actually bring my resume, do you want to read it? And then it's actually true. So it's just out of your resume, and you don't want to do it, right? Do not write what is already stated on your other application documents. So let's say you have top-notch score of GRE, and then you want to prove that to the admission committee because you think, oh no, they have to know that I have a good score on GRE. You don't have to mention that because they already know, because they receive your GRE score anyway, right? So similar thing with GPA, because you're turning in your transcript. So you don't have to like really mention about your GPA. write more than the word limit. So if they ask you to write 750 words of essay, don't write 765, right? You want to be in a word limit. A short essay, somewhere around 250 to 500 words, means answer the question right away and to the point. I see a lot of universities also in the US have this, and they have a number of questions. It's really tricky because sometimes they can have 2 or 3 questions, and then you have to actually answer it in 500 words limit. And then when I read the essay, because the students mostly dwell on the story about themselves more, they only answer exactly the question that the university is asking in one paragraph, like in only like maybe like 3 to 4 lines. So it doesn't really answer the whole questions. So if there is no word limit, or sometimes you have let's say 2 pages maximum of essay, you want to have a structure of how to write the essay. So for example, you want to have an introduction paragraphs, and then moving on with body paragraphs, and then conclusion paragraphs. But if you have if the university only asks for 250, 500, you don't have to have, like an introduction, but you can go just to the point and answer the question, right? So you save time and really answer it. Also, the university, they want to know if you did some research about the institution. Did you review the curriculum and faculty? Did you spend time thinking about what you really wanted out of your grad school experience? So this is something actually that the universities want to hear more about you. Common mistake number 4, only applying to 1 or 2 universities. So let's say you are under a scholarship that requires you have to live on a certain term, and then you only apply to 1 university. You definitely want to avoid that, because I stumbled upon students in that case like that before, especially if the 1 or 2 universities are the one that has a really low acceptance rate. You want to avoid that because you want to have a backup plan, right? A backup plan means you want to have normally 3 different types of category of schools: rich schools, target schools, and safety schools. So you want to have maybe keep 1 or 2 rich schools. We're talking about schools that have a really low acceptance rate. And then target schools, we're looking at sometimes around 50% of acceptance rate. And safety school. Safety school, sometimes students think that, oh, it's a not really well-known school, so I don't want to go there. But trust me, in the United States, there are thousands of universities. And usually smaller universities might offer you a better program for you. So please bear in mind to expand your university option. And this is what step 1 is actually about on my previous slide, because we're sitting together and then we look at the options of schools, right? And common mistake, the last one, common mistake number 5, it is only worth getting into a top-ranked big university, right? Right? I heard this a lot, like, nope, Fina, I just want to apply to this school and that and that and that, and then I'm like, where's the safety school? And they have no idea. So schools can be so different in the US. Some are very competitive. Some prefer collaborative learning, or some have great support for getting your next job, or they have a really good independent research. So when you're looking for a university, it's really good to make like a pro and cons list. Really think about what is it that you really want out of your program. So not by just applying, get into the university, get in class, and then do the exam, and then you get the degree. But really think about, oh, do I want to find a program that requires me to do an internship outside campus, right? Or volunteer opportunities or something like that, right? Learn more about your choice of schools, and don't get discouraged just because one university doesn't work out for you. And this is good if you have more than 2 universities in your list. right? Because you have a backup plan. So let's say the first two universities that you really want to go to didn't accept you for whatever reason for that specific term, you still can, you have a better chance to get into the other schools, and you can still depart to the US in a specific term, yeah. And I'm not sure, maybe this is not really applies to most companies here in Indonesia, but please bear in mind that good employers value for who you are, what you can bring to the table, and the degree itself. They don't really look at where you graduate from, but it's really about like how you can basically bring your degree, your study, to the company, right? And good luck. And of course, Education USA is always here. Indonesia Mengglobal is here. So there are a lot of resources for you to study in the US, because I also see a lot of students coming in and they said, I'm not sure if I can get into the US because it seems like very hard to get into. But believe me, it's going up. Like we have never seen a number of Indonesian students studying in the US keep going up and up and up from year to year. So we are happy to see that, and it's actually part of my job. I always love to help you guys. And yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Fina, for presenting the top common mistakes that all of us sometimes stumble upon. So our next speaker is my colleague from Indonesia Mengglobal. Please welcome Anggita, who currently works as a brand manager at Baygon, and she holds a master's degree in finance and investment from the University of Edinburgh with full scholarship from LPDP, and earned a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from Bandung Institute of Technology. The floor is yours, Anggita.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Okay, it's very nice to meet you here. So, as Josephine mentioned before, this is my third year actually joining Indonesia Mengglobal. So the first 2 years, I was actually mentor in this mentorship program. So here I would like to share with you about more about the program and why I think you should join and really use these opportunities, especially if you know that you are going to get into a higher degree or going to study abroad. So I'm going to skip this because we already, Josephine already mentioned before, who are we? Indonesia Mengglobal is actually, we're a nonprofit organization. So we are focusing on equal opportunities for Indonesians to study abroad, because we basically believe that all of Indonesians, all of us, we have the potentials just to compete with all the nations in the world. Okay, so the mentorship program. So yeah, as I mentioned before, this program was designed by our founders because we believe that Indonesian has huge potential to study in the world's top universities. And, but we see that even in Indonesia, we still have lack of information and resources just to find out how we can do that, or how we can start, or how, where we can consult, or who can help us into reaching our dreams. Okay, so in this program, we connect prospective students who are going to study abroad, or who thinking of having a higher degree abroad, that needs guidance from current students or alumni, and we will connect them into basically one-on-one consultation. So just to prepare the applicants to successfully pass through the application process once they are preparing for the application. Okay, so what we do, as I mentioned before, we connect mentees, we will call that for our applicants, mentees, and mentors into one-on-one consultation setting. So the mentees, we will have a selection process just to pick excellent prospective students with competency and motivation to grow. I would love to highlight this because I know that everyone is bright in their own way. Everyone is smart. Everyone can get a good GPA. But motivation here is important because, as you will see through my next slides, Indonesia Mengglobal is actually just providing you the resources, the facilities. But at the end, you will walk into your journey by yourself. Okay. So how we do this? We have sets of assignments to provide mentees with the real preparation process. So for example, assignment 1, we will ask you to tell us about yourself, to tell us about your motivation. Why do you want to study abroad? What will you bring after you get accepted into your dream university? And also, what are you going to contribute once you came back after your study? Okay, and then our mentors, they are current students, either current students or alumni, who dedicated their time, invested their time, and they came from world's top institutions. Some of them also still studying there, and they have one trait in common, which is their willingness to share. Their willingness to share to all of Indonesians aspiring to study abroad. Okay, and this is the most important part. The program is free of charge. So as I told you before, we are a non-profit organization. So all of us here in Indonesia Mengglobal, including our mentors, we are volunteers. So yeah, this is I think the most important part of the program. Okay, so how we select our mentees. So the recruitment opens every year. So just a little bit of information. We are going to start recruiting on 1st of May. So if you already have in mind that you are going to start your master or maybe PhD study this year or next year, you better prepare for our next info. So applications are carefully reviewed and selected based on the following eligibility. So the first one is your achievement. Of course, we only recruit some of the best Indonesian students. Okay. And then mentee suitability with his or her chosen field of study. And then pairing suitability. And the last one is commitment. Okay, so just a brief for this eligibility, because at the end, we will connect you one-on-one with a mentor. So we want to see if you can really cooperate with your mentor for the next around 6 months, doing all your assignments despite if you currently have a job or you currently have any activities outside, but we want to see that you really commit, that you really show your effort into the program. Okay. So the program structure. So the program itself is actually, we want to prepare you. We want to prepare you like creating a simulation on how the preparing for your application really is. So when you are in the real situation of preparing your application, there's no one will help you. But here, at least the mentor will help you to prepare and then to give you some tips, to give you some of their experiences, because basically they've done this before. So they can really share what they think is important for you to succeed in the application round. Okay, so this program combines independent assignment works, as I mentioned before, which includes individual assignments and group assignments, and consultation. So basically, we will give you assignment every 2 weeks, and in each assignment, you must schedule at least one session with your mentor. Okay, so I want to stop here because when I say you must schedule one consultation session with your mentor. It also shows how serious you are in the process. Because our mentor, they, as I said, they are current students, either alumni. So they also have their jobs, and they will have to spend their time to have a consultation with you. So be proactive is one thing that we need from mentees. Okay, so what will the assignment cover? So basically everything. Everything we need to know when we are preparing for school application, like how to choose the best school, how to write essays, or how to hunt for scholarships, how to maybe survive when you already in university. Okay, so yeah, the consultation itself is not face to face. So we encourage we always encourage the consultation happens using Skype or Google Hangouts or any kind of audio communication media. Okay, so I have some profile of some of our mentors. Both of them are actually a good friend of mine. So yeah, as you can see in their school, and also what are they doing now after graduating. They are obviously a very successful person, and such a role model that we can follow. Okay, so what they say about the Indonesia Mengglobal mentorship program is this program is actually very structured, and they have and they love being a mentor because basically they can share what they have experienced to the mentors. And also they, as what we always look for, they look at the motivation of the mentees, and they are really happy if they can get a mentee that is really motivated and knows what to do with their plans. Okay. And I would like to share you as well a success story of one of our mentee. She was actually a mentee in 2016, and now she's accepted in LSE. Yeah. Okay, so here I just want to differentiate the left part and the right part, because there's a reason why I divided her comments into these two sections. The left part, because she joined Indonesia Mengglobal mentorship because she knows that this program will help her. But help in what kind of way? Help in the way that we provide resources and facilities for you to prepare yourself for your application round. But on the right side, she also acknowledged that this program is actually works only if you can be persistent, if you can keep your commitment. Because when you finally jump into the real application process, there's no one will help you. We are here, our mentors are here, just to help you prepare, to give you tips. But at the end of the process, it's not a matter that you can finish the program successfully. But the real deal is when you really get into the application process, preparing for your application. Okay, so what do you need to be our mentees? Okay, so in mentorship program, we do not limit based on study program, based on which level. We accept applicants applying for undergraduate, master's, or PhD. In any university, we do not limit based on country, based on field of study. Okay, and if you are applying to universities taught in English, you will need to present us your TOEFL or IELTS score. Why? Because we in Indonesia Mengglobal think that if you already have TOEFL or IELTS, that means you are one step closer, showing us that you really want to study abroad, that you really have that plans in mind. And the third one is you must be highly committed and responsible to engage in the program. Okay. When I say applications, it's not only for mentee. We also open applications for mentor. So for those of you, or if you know someone that really can help us to engage in this program, they can apply as mentor as well. Whether you are a current student, non-exchange, or alumni in any university abroad, and also you must be highly committed and responsible to engage in the program. Okay, so this is our target and timeline for this year's program. We are going to target 40 participants, so 40 mentees and 40 mentors will be paired. And then these are the schedule for this year's program. We are going to start opening our recruitment on 1st of May for a full month. And then we will have, for the first stage of selection, we will have administration screening. And after that, we will continue with interview. And after interview, the selected mentees and mentors will be paired. And after that, you will engage in the program for the next three months. Okay, so that's all from me. You can stay connected with us on our social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and also on the website. And please go on our website to just keep updated on our news, on our articles. And if you want to know more about the programs and maybe get some stories for your inspiration, please do connect with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie, and all for all our speakers. Now, I would like to invite Russell and also Fina to come to the stage and join us in the panel session. But most importantly, we have listened to the perspective from the admission committee, from the education consultant, and from also the former mentors, and well, now it's still mentors. But we also want to listen to another perspective, which is the former student who right now happens to be also one of the interviewer for MBA program. So right now, I would like to invite Ayu Kartika Dewi, who is currently working as Managing Director of Indica Foundation. And she has various roles and experience in professional world, starting from PNG, Jakarta, and Singapore, teaching at Indonesia Mengajar. And also, she co-founded Sabang Merauke, a non-profit organization that promotes cultural diversity experience for young Indonesians. And Ayu was just recently asked to give speech about her work in peace and tolerance in front of Kofi Annan and Ban Ki-moon in London last year. So she has a very thorough experience and willing to share with you. And now we'd like to welcome Ayu to the stage. Wow, so this is the exciting part where I can get to see it together with all these great people. So, hi, Ayu, welcome to the stage. We're very happy for you to enrich the discussion here. So I guess since that our other three honorable guests have spoken about their perspective, I would like to ask you about, you took MBA. Probably you can introduce first yourself about your academic background, and yeah, later on I'll follow up the question.
All right. So hi, thank you so much for having me here. Hi everyone. So a little bit of introduction. My name is Ayu. I currently work in Indica Foundation as the Managing Director. I started Sabang Merauke, which is a student exchange program 6 years ago. So you basically mentioned a little bit about what I had, what my CV was earlier. And then you asked about my MBA experience.
Yeah, so where did you go to?
I went to Duke University in the U.S.
And then you
with
took your
Fulbright
MBA.
scholarship.
Okay. Promotion. Okay, so what's your bachelor's degree?
So I took Sarjana Ekonomi, Economics, and Management in Erlangga University, Surabaya.
All right. So I want to ask, like Russell before mentioned about that we have to explore the moment of our life where, it inspires us or whether, okay, I have this aha moment that I want to pursue MBA. So if you don't mind, this is quite more personal question. What sort of this kind of aha moment in your life that propels you to take MBA at Duke?
Sure, sure. So after graduation from my bachelor degree, I work in Procter and Gamble. So I started in Jakarta and then I moved to Singapore. So I was so sure, because I loved the job, I was so sure that I'm gonna stay in Procter and Gamble for a very long time. And then an opportunity came. I became a primary school teacher in Indonesia. So I came back home to Indonesia to become a primary school teacher. And then after the 1 year of teaching, that was when the self-questioning happens. What do I want to do with my life? Do I want to continue to work at the corporate world for the rest of my life, which is perfectly fine, which if that's what you want to do. But then I have that questions at that time. And then I remembered one of my mentor actually said, so I remembered I was asking him, should I continue to become a teacher? Should I start applying to work at the government as an government officer? Should I continue to work at an NGO, or should I go back to corporate world? There are so many questions that I asked to my mentor, and then he said this, which I will never forget. He said, "Ayu, there are a lot of people who are good in doing business, and there are a lot of people who wants to do something good for the country, but there are not too many people that good in both of them. So be one of them." And then that was exactly the moment that I realized that I have the 5 years of experience being in the business sector. And then an experience actually made me realize that I want to do something for the country. And I know that there are not too many people are in this intersection. So I decided to take MBA with the concentration in social entrepreneurship.
Check. That's a very, inspiring story, right? That's something that you wrote in your essay? Yes. Okay, guys, be mindful. Ini tipe-tipe cerita yang ditulis di motivation letter kalian. Okay, so I also want to ask again that you have unique perspective here. You were a former student, MBA student, but right now the wheel has turned and you become an MBA interviewer. So probably like having been exposed to various candidates and also taking lessons from your previous experience as a candidate yourself, what sort of advice do you usually give to the MBA applicants?
There are, and this is really interesting because I feel that the life has gone full circle. So actually a few years ago when I was applying for MBA and for applying for Fulbright scholarship, I was actually one of the mentee in Indonesia Mengglobal. So Indonesia Mengglobal actually, I remember that my mentors, I submitted my essays and then my mentor in Indonesia Mengglobal actually bashed my essay. So basically he was saying that this is not right, this is not clear, you're not being clear, there are so many points, this and that, this and that. And it was a really, really good wake-up call. And I think that is exactly the type of ruthlessness that you need to get from someone who you want to get feedback from. Don't try to get feedback from someone or from your friend who is really, really nice and just want to tell you the nice things. So, and also it is a full circle because I've been practicing for interviewing, for being interviewed, and now I'm interviewing. There are several advice. I guess the first one is that Russell mentioned earlier about your story and your passion need to be threaded throughout your entire application. I call it benang merah. So what is your benang merah? What is your overall story throughout your entire applications? So sometimes, very, very often, I met candidates who are really good in a section, a particular area, and then her activities is in that particular area, and then what she wants to do in the future is in another different area. And it's just so difficult for me to comprehend, why again do you want to take this study? It is not clear. And it is such a self-discovery, because it took me forever to realize that I want to take MBA for social entrepreneurship. And then it is okay to going back and forth about what you want, and it can take years to look for what do you really want to do in your life, but it is okay, but find what is your benang merah. The second one is that don't try to look perfect. Because in fact, it is important for you to state in your application and to state in your interview that you need this school, that you need this particular learning. Because I know a couple of people that did not get into a school or did not get into a scholarship because the committee thinks that they are too perfect already. You will already be where you want to be without any school, without any scholarship. So make sure that you understand that. So I like to write down into there is a steps, there's milestones, right? So this is where you are, that is where you want to be, and this is the gap. So paint a really good picture about that gap and make sure that you make that clear that I know I'm already good at this, but I want to be there. So this is what I need. Therefore, I need to go to your school. So it is something that's really, really important to paint. And I guess those two things are usually the main things that I usually mention. And the third one, which is really, really important, is really personalize your story. So I studied in Duke University, right? So I got Fulbright scholarship and a full scholarship from Duke University. And I believe that one of the reasons that I can get that is because my story is very, very personal. So when the interviewer asked me, why do you want to study at Duke? There were so many universities out there. I can answer with very personalized answer, which is my mentor studied at Duke. She embodied Duke University experience and culture. So without her telling me about Team Fuqua, Team Duke spirit, she has actually have been helping me a lot. And I want to be able to study in a university, in a campus that's full of people that looks like her, that full of people that it is as helpful as her. So find that story and do that extra mile to make your story very, very personal. I did not know this person before. So I went on LinkedIn, I tried to find someone who's a second-hand person from this. I asked myself to get introduced, asked myself to get introduced to the other person, and then I got introduced to this person. And then I went the extra mile to give my essays to her, ask her to read my essays, build the relationship. Even until today, we're still good friends. So have that extra mile. There are not too many people that do the extra mile when they're applying for schools. So be that person that make the extra miles, find the alumni that's really, really helpful for you, and create that personal story. So those are the three suggestions they usually have, which is one, paint a really clear picture about your benang merah, and then the last one is basically to make it really, really personal. And the second one is to make sure that you paint the picture of the gap. Why do you need this study?
Wow. Thanks so much. I think it's really important for everyone here because this is something what I always tell that for people that ask me as well. Like, especially pursuing postgraduate education is not a walk in the park. If there is any, it's like walking in the desert. But for sure that you're not walking there alone. You can look for help, you're going to extra miles looking for mentors, even, do not be afraid, I don't know this person, but just go there and ask, present yourself, and opportunity will present itself to you. So I want to ask, you mentioned, and also wearing this very proud Fulbright, yay. As Fina and also Russell have explained about the tips to get into the school, do you think there's a different treatment for applying to scholarship? Probably different tips and advice.
Yeah, personally, I don't think so. I think the skills that you need and the wisdom that you need to have for you to be able to apply to a good school and to get a scholarship is pretty much similar. Because I think a school and a scholarships want the same thing, which is they want to admit a good people that will be able to create an impact to the society. It doesn't matter what is your area of field of work, as long as you're as long as you excel in that and as long as you can create impact in that area, I think it's the same thing. You need to be able to paint a picture. What is your impact after you graduate?
Okay. So next question is, this is something that I'm curious, and I guess most of the people here also curious, not really related about the topic though. So as a lady coming from a country with, you know, largest Muslim population, and also wearing hijab, and some people I think might be curious about how was the experience. Is there something like did you find anything like probably bad memories or even good memories, and probably you can convince the women here or even guys who want to study abroad and still feel that cultural barriers.
So I got these questions all the time actually. So you studied in the U.S. or you lived in Singapore, you traveled to this place. Do you ever think to take off your hijab when you're studying in the U.S.? And I said, of course not. Why would I do that? And there was a huge misconceptions about U.S. And I think I have never felt so all my experience, I think, being a Muslim in the U.S. has been wonderful. So North Carolina, where I studied, it is actually in the southern part of the U.S., which is the Bible Belt, which means there are tons of Christians people and there are tons of churches. Even Duke University looks like Harry Potter campus because it is like the biggest building is actually the church, the cathedral, the chapel. But the experience has been okay. The experience has been great, and I think usually the experience that is not great for me, being someone who looks like this, wearing a hijab, with a brown skin that looks like a Javanese, I often get stopped at the immigrations, at the airports in Indonesia. Usually after I came back from Singapore or from Hong Kong or from Saudi Arabia, and because usually people at the airport thought that I'm a takeaway, female Indonesian migrant worker, and usually that's the only discriminations that I have. So the discrimination that I have is not in the U.S. It is actually in our own country. So definitely do not be afraid about studying in the U.S. I know that there are a lot of stories about news about whatever happens in the U.S., but just like whatever the story that people hear about Indonesia, it is not always true. Media always likes to portray bad news is good news. So don't worry about that at all. It has been nothing but great.
That's great. Yeah, please give a round of applause for Ayu. So I guess with the time constraint, I know that you all are brimming with a lot of questions. So I just want to give the time for everyone here to ask questions to our panel. Any questions? Okay, guy from here. Where's the microphone? Okay, we're still waiting for the microphone. And guys, please introduce your name. Probably if you want to, you can briefly say that what sort of majors that do you want to apply?
Thank you. To make it efficient, so I just come down to the stage and take the microphone. So my name is Mario, and I live in Jakarta. I'm from Jakarta. I have a question. Thanks for the inspiring story. I have a question for Ayu and also for Anggita. They took out the name there, so I know Anggita and Ayu. So both of you are went to business school, and I know for engineering, I think it's more common for people to go to business school. That's what I thought. I'm not sure if that's true, but for Ayu especially, you said you were in the hybrid intersections between, you do the business, but you also like to do something good for your country, which is honorable. My very question is for both of you: what skills that you don't have before, and then you took the business schools, MBA, and then you get that skills, and then you can apply it. Whenever we thought about business schools, I wanted to apply for that. And when I thought about that, that's a huge opportunity cost for me. 1 year, 2 year, wherever you are in, top 5 or top 10 or top 15 business school in the world, there must be some cost that you have to pay. I don't talk about money, but it could be, your 2 years experience, your 1 year experience in your job, in your community, right? So is it worth it? That's what my question. So my second question is more like, how do you choose Edinburgh? How do you choose Duke? And why not, other schools? Thank you.
Okay, shall we look? I can pull another 2 questions first before we go to the answer session. Any other question? Guys, don't be shy. Russell says that we should raise our hands. Ada pertanyaan? Dan kalau misalnya mau nanya bahasa Indonesia juga boleh banget. Oke, nggak ada dulu? Oke, boleh kita jawab pertanyaan dari Mario dulu.
Is it worth it? Definitely yes. You'll be working for the next, 20, 30, 40 years. And getting that 1 or 2 years break and really discover yourself is definitely worth the time investment. The biggest skill that I got from business school is definitely not the investing skills, or definitely not about, how to draw a beautiful business case. Because after you not even after you graduate, after you finish the final exam, you will forget, right? So, and the lessons that you get from schools are basically the one that you can get in internet anyway these days. So the biggest skills or the biggest learning that I get is definitely not the studies or the learnings that I got in class, but how do I change as a person? And I think and my friends who were my friends before I studied in the U.S. and after I came back from the U.S. saw a really a big difference in me, which is I became a much calmer person. I became much more understanding, much more patient, much more vulnerable, basically more human. And I think this is because you've gone through so many difficulties when you studied in the US. I thought my 2 years break is going to be holiday. No, it's going to be difficult. And I've gone through so many wreckage in my life. My relationship was a wreckage. I had difficulties fitting in. I don't drink, so it was heavy. I had difficulties fitting in with the US students who drinks all the time. It was really hard, and I struggled in the classroom. It was really hard. And I think coming out from there makes me make me a more humble person. And it improves my relationship with the people back home, because generally I just become a better person. So it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth the time commitment. As long as you're committing to your study, just go full force and experience the study in the US or study abroad story. I think there are a lot of Indonesians, when they study abroad, they stay with another Indonesians, they eat Indomie all the time and discuss about Indonesian politics every day. Yeah, please don't do that. So I did not stay with Indonesian. I do eat Indomie. But
Just can't get away with that, right?
yeah. But immerse yourself in the culture. And to the second questions, how do I pick Duke is, I think, because the culture really speaks to me. As I mentioned before, my mentor is a Duke graduate. I really want to be like her. I really want to be working and studying together with people like her. And the essays are actually really interesting. So one of the essays, because when you're applying for schools, there are some essays that you need to write, right? And the first question in Duke essays is, tell us 25 random things about you. And it is really interesting. I've never had an essay questions like that before. I have never had a school that really want to know me personally, and that's really me. I'm a very people person. And as much as I fell in love with the school fell in love with me. They give me the full scholarship, right? So and I think that that's really matter. Make sure that you do feel that personal connection once you get to the school.
Wow, that's great. It sounds like, the old time when you try to fall in love through letters, okay? Not through WhatsApp or an emails or in person. You convince the campus to fall in love with you through like return, or probably if they're okay with you, they're okay, let's do the interview, face-to-face meetings, right? Okay. Probably, Angita, although you're not exactly an MBA, right? Is that a different program or?
I was in MSc in finance.
Okay, but probably you want to add something to,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so definitely when you said about engineering graduate going to business school, yeah, I was one of them. So my bachelor degree was actually in industrial engineering. Then I switched field into finance. So when you said, is it definitely worth it? Yes, of course it's worth it. Because at first, I never got any formal education in finance. I was in engineering background, by the way. I learned one thing or two about finance, but not in a really structured way. But then during my master degree, of course, I had a lot of study about finance, and I also wrote a dissertation in finance. Even until now, when I look back to where I was, I cannot believe that I could really write that kind of dissertation. Yeah. But one thing that I learned from my master degree is I learned about it's good to embrace your imperfection, because in engineering degree, I think when I look at my classmates, they are all bright. I mean, they are all good with numbers. Sometimes, of course, I was shy when I really have to talk about what's your GPA, okay? What is your score in calculus, for example, or statistics? Okay, of course, I'm lower than you. Yeah, but but when I was in the UK, I think I always feel that I can learn something from my classmate. Some of them are good in statistics, but some of them are good in expressing their opinions, expressing their minds. And some of them maybe have a background in having their own business maybe, and I can learn about their perseverance, I can learn about their commitment on how to do that. So when I was in UK, I didn't really think about how to get a good mark or how to really have an excellent score, top 1% among my class, no. But I just feel that I need to really use this opportunity to experience all the things that I can get. So yeah, just to maximize your time and get the most value out of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Anggita. Ada pertanyaan lagi mungkin dari sini? Nah, ini udah mulai panas. Oke, saya penasaran dengan Bapak ini dulu. Bapak dari mau nanya untuk diri sendiri atau mungkin anaknya? Dan by the way, I know there's some parents coming here yang mau nanya-nanya tentang S1 mungkin. Bisa banget. Vina dan Russell can answer that. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Hardy. I would like to ask the question for Mr. Russell. As we heard from you, there are 5 aspects in looking at students' application. So is there any standardized guideline for university in looking at students' application? And then, because many students will have a very good background and very difficult to differentiate between each student, right? So is there any standardized guideline for the graders to look at the students' application? And number 2, my question is, if we can put it in order from 1 to 5, what is the most important thing in the student's application and what is the less important thing? Thank you.
All right, I got to make sure I get these questions down. So the first one was kind of how do they evaluate your application, right? There is, there's a lot of application readers, right? One person cannot read all of the application. So there's typically a rubric, something that guides them, and they do grade the different elements of the application. But, they have very specific guidelines, even though it's still subjective to some degree because it is a human process. But they do try to give you, this is what, if 1 is the best and 5 is not the best, one has to have these elements, okay? And then 2 has to have these elements, and so on and so forth. So there is guidance on, because we have to calibrate in some way, right? But then I'll even add, I mean, this is a human process. When when the admissions committee comes together, and a lot of schools will actually use what they call seasonal readers. So they're people who have been reading, reading applications, but they're not maybe full-time staff, right? They might be seasonal staff. I mean, they've been doing it for years, potentially. Maybe they've been doing it at other schools. But, when admissions committee's sitting there, maybe not everybody, and many admissions committees work differently, too. So there's no exact way that every school follows. But, then we start to see the personalities of the readers. Then we start to, and we calibrate to the reader. Then we start to see the interviewers, and you calibrate to the interviewers. This interviewer is a really tough interviewer. This interviewer is maybe not so tough. So we tend to focus more when we're reading, like, for example, the interview evaluation, we're going to focus less on the score and more on the content. What was actually said, what was actually written up about the interview and what they thought of the person. So does that answer the first question, more or less? So for me personally, and I think for many application readers, I think essays are the number one, because this is where you start to get to hear their voice. I don't really feel like I can rank the next 4 because, going back to this whole idea of holistic, it's really hard to say that one of these is not worth something, or is worse or worth much less than everything else. But for me personally, essays are what I really look forward to when I'm reading an application. And then I really like it when the essay just brings everything else together. Going back to the themes that we've talked about, those threads throughout. I wish I could say the word that you use, but oh gosh, good roll there. But yeah, so essays number 1. I would say everything else number 2.
Great. Okay, so from this side, yeah, the lady with the orange shirt.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth. I think my questions can be addressed to all the speakers. So recently I was applying for a fellowship, and which in the application, in the essay question, I found a question that asking, what is your weakness? And I thought, what question is this? And I was like swaying away from that point. So I didn't answer that point, and I didn't get it, and I think it's reasonable. But I want to know if you ever found a question like that, how did you cope with it? And I heard from my friends that that has already gone overseas for school that there are a lot of intimidation and pressure, and I would love to know how did you manage it and how did you maintain that? Thank you.
Fina, probably you might want to answer this first. So essentially, like, should we always look perfect on paper, right?
Yeah.
Should we or should we not reveal our weakness?
I believe that Bayu and Russell already covered that. You don't have to be the perfect person to apply, right? Because if you're already perfect, like why do you need to apply to the university? So in terms of, usually the university asks about how you can address your weakness and how you overcome that, right? So it can be something that can happen usually during your workforce at work, if you have any kind of like challenges that you found at work, that can be some kind of like not literally like a weakness, but something that you have that challenge. So think of a weakness of something that what is it that challenged you the most, that you found really hard to overcome, but you did it anyway. So I think that is something that what the university is looking for. But I think Russell can add more to that.
Yeah.
I know it's a bit tricky question.
It is, but I mean, you heard me use the word self-reflection and self-awareness, right? We want to see that you've thought about not just what your strengths are, but what your weaknesses are. And maybe a place to start with thinking about what maybe a weakness is think about your strengths, because typically when you're really strong at something, there's a flat side to it, right? Kind of a blind side to it. And for me, for example, I'm very passionate, you know, and that's a good thing. When I'm in admissions committee and I'm fighting for somebody, you know, I mean, I'm going to fight for that person, right? And I'm really enthusiastic and passionate. But the flat side of that is I take things personal, you know, sometimes. And it's not personal, but I feel it personal. And so, you know, how do I overcome that? And so that's maybe a place to start, you know, when you're thinking about what is that weakness I have, is think about your strengths and then think about maybe what could that potential weak side or blind side be as a result of it.
Very good point. Yeah. Any other questions over here? Okay, so the lady behind with eyeglasses.
Boleh ke sini? Yang kotak-kotak. Nah, di sini berdiri biar dapat.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Vela. I would like to ask about to all the panelists. Would you like to give us some advice and tips how to make your application stand out if you apply for different major than your bachelor degree? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah. Agita, probably you want to start first since your master's was different with your bachelor's degree.
Yeah, actually, I got a lot of questions like this. The way I did when I wrote my essay is I connect my essay to what I'm going to do next. So basically, when I chose master in finance, I already had an idea what I'm going to do next with this degree, because I do think that having an engineering degree and finance, it's a complementary. So it will complement each other to what I'm going to achieve next. Like for example, I remember that I wrote in my essay that I wanted to start socializing about financial engineering, which is that field is really rare in Indonesia. We in university, all universities in Indonesia, there are no at my time, there are no university has that study program. So I want to contribute to be one of the few person that starts that field, because basically when you want to be a financial engineer, you have to be strong in numbers, strong in statistics, calculus, which that's absolutely what you got in engineering degree. But then you also have to know about finance, do the money stuffs, the calculation, the modeling thing, which it's a part of economics. I didn't get that during my engineering degree, econometrics and so on. So I would connect that into my essays. So that would give a clear picture to the admission committee that I'm choosing this program because I already know what I'm going to do next. And your program will help me to achieve that. Yeah.
I'm just going to add just quickly. So when you're making a transition, try to think about the skills that you have, the talents that you have that you can leverage. And then, of course, you need to know what are the gaps. And my advice to anybody, and this is career advice, if you're already got a bachelor's and you're thinking about making some sort of transition, or you've got a job in mind, but maybe you don't have the perfect bachelor's for it, and this goes back to one of the things that I was talking about, which is that kind of networking, reaching out to people. Talk to people who are doing things that you're kind of interested in. You know, get insight into what the job is like and what are the skills that they need to be successful in that job. You know, if you need a little bit of insight to figure out what are the skills that you need, and then you connect those needs, those gaps, to how the school, the resources related to the program can help you fill those gaps. And that's how you connect your story to the school story and convince them that you're the right program for me, because you've also done your research into the specific resources and programs that they have that are going to help you fill those gaps, which also demonstrates you've done the self-reflection, have all that self-awareness. It all kind of wraps together.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit, sometimes it is not a plus point if you have the exact same master's degree plan with your undergrad, because you already have that. So for example, my friend, he had an accounting as an undergrad, and he said in his essays that he wanted to be a finance minister one day, and then his master's degree, he took public policy, right? Because it tied in together. You learn about accounting, you learn about public policy, then you become the finance minister. For example, another of my friend, she had a design undergrad degree, and then she wanted to design an educational materials for children. So as the master's degree, she took children's psychology, right? So see the pattern, see the benang merah, right? As long as you can tie the story, it is perfectly fine to have a switch career, as long as you have the story.
Great. Please give a round of applause for our speakers. Thanks so much for a great discussion. I've been reminded by this computer that our time is up, but don't worry. We're still going to have discussion afterwards. You can talk directly to all our speakers personally. And I would like to remind all of you that please also visit Education USA for your daily consultation. You can also go to Mengglobal.com because we have more than 1,000 articles from US, from UK, Europe, Australia, even some countries in Africa. Like for those of you who want to go to study religion in Al Azhar University, for example, even in Singapore, in Asia, we have a lot of stories, experience. So we have all these accumulated lessons learned, and that the only thing that you need to do is just click and type about what questions do you want. So feel free to also visit our YouTube and also follow our social media because we do daily updates and we give a lot of information and announcement useful for you on our social media. So once again, on behalf of Indonesia Mengglobal, Education USA, and also Duke Kunzon University, I'm Josephine Chitra, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for the moderator and speakers today. Now, as a tradition, I would like to invite to come up on the stage. In the middle of stage, we're going to take a picture. Okay, we have a Fulbright brochure. If you want to a lot of information, we provide a brochure from Fulbright on the registration. Baik, sekali lagi atas nama AtAmerica kami mengucapkan terima kasih. Thank you for your attendance today. Don't forget tomorrow from 1 to 5 p.m. we're going to have a law school fair. They're gonna 5 school fair we're going to fair in AtAmerica. So once again, thank you for coming and have a great weekend.